Welcome to Community Conversations with State Attorney Bain, your talk show for insights on the criminal justice system, community issues, and public safety in Orange and Osceola counties. Join State Attorney Andrew Bain as he dives into the issues that matter most to you, keeping it real every step of the way.
All right. Welcome back to another week of Community Conversations with me, State Attorney Andrew Bain. I am the state attorney for the 9th Judicial Circuit. If you're listening out there, that covers both Orange and Osceola counties in Florida. So we have a huge, diverse jurisdiction. I mean, there's so many things to talk about when you think about Orange and Osceola County, from not just ethnic, but religious, social, economic. There's so many different pockets of things that go on in our community. So if you're thinking about whether it's like in 50, where there's like a lot of Asian food, like a kind of our version of Chinatown, and you're thinking about East Orange, by UCF, and you think about further East Orange, out in the kind of more rural areas of Christmas and Buffalo, and you think about Osceola, who's a growing suburban community that's just keeping crazy pace with what's going on. And it still has a very rural aspect to it. You think about Deseret Ranch, 50,000 acres of cattle ranch, one of the largest cattle ranches in the country. And the likelihood that if you were eating a hamburger here in the United States, likely that cow was born in Florida, and it's essentially likelihood that cow was born on one of our local ranches. And so it's such an amazing thing to think about. The Dr. Phillips Center and the now Kia Center. And so all the things that kind of make our community great is what's awesome. And so, I always talk about what we're talking about today. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the criminal justice system here in Orange and Osceola County. Let's talk a little bit about staffing. So I am super excited because last week, we were in office for just about a year, and we had fully staffed our office now. We are out of the 163 positions I can fill. That's 165 positions I can fill with prosecutors. We've filled 163 of those positions, and those are just with attorneys and certified legal interns. And so that allows us a lot more flexibility in how we go out to approach the onslaught of cases that we receive per year. On average, our office receives somewhere between 50 and 60,000 cases per year, and that's just a varying of different types of crimes, to very serious homicides, to minor, more minor misdemeanor cases like traffic, and to all in between, to thefts and burglaries and all the types of different kind of crimes that occur here locally in the 9th Circuit. And so my goal is to make sure our office is always ready, always there to hear, to listen to our community, to make sure also we're representing our victims in a compassionate way. And that's why we bring on so many different services. Soon we're going to do an episode talking about our victim services and the great work of my victim advocates and our great partnership with the Victim Service Center, handled by Louis Damiani, and the work that we allow to get to have crisis care counselors in office for our victims about 3 days a week right now, and hoping to expand the uses of that and the uses as far as 5 days a week, hopefully in Orange County, and then transferring that also to Osceola County as a possibility. So all those kind of different things make staffing very important, because there's not just prosecutors that work for my office. I have HR, I have a physical team, the money team that deals with all the budgeting and finances for the office, that handles kind of how we deal with the $39 million that the taxpayers give us every year to give them the product that they want, which is a great quality prosecution. And so that is the goal that we want to have every single day when we come to the office. I have law enforcement officers that work for us. So like a lot of people don't know that I have a whole investigative team of sworn law enforcement officers that do varying roles for the state attorney. And so that's sometimes serving process, which means going out, giving somebody a subpoena, telling them they have to come to court. They do other investigations inside of our office, both criminally and internally. And so those all things that they provide us different aspects of what we do. I have paralegals, I have assistants, I have support staff that have varying different roles. I have IT departments. We have all those different things. If you think about a big corporation, that we have a part of what we do every single day. And so staffing of our prosecutors is very important because that allows us to bring more quality to the kind of cases and speed to the cases that we handle. So super excited to see on this Friday that they get in and start their task and start their process of becoming great prosecutors. We had 23 new hires of attorneys, which is almost a lot more than what we had last year when I got here. And so super excited for that. We had 40 interns this summer that spent the whole summer with us learning about the criminal justice system. That's both law school students, undergrad. We had a couple of high school interns here. So I'm all about providing opportunities to as many people as I can to learn about actual work that is done here in the office and the great people, more importantly, the great people and the great team that I have doing that work. And so part of that as well, is I talk about all the time is my community work. So there's always community conversations. That's what we're talking about. We're here to talk about what are we doing as a community to address a lot of these issues when it comes to our kids, our mental health, our education system. We'll talk about actual healthcare and soon in one of these episodes. And so one of the great partnerships that my office has is with the Central Florida Urban League. And so I want to bring on my good friend, Mr. Carl Battle from the Central Florida Urban League to talk to us a little bit about, what does Urban League do? Who are they? And what services are they providing in this little building over there next to Evans and Pine Hills? So, Mr. Battle, tell the people about the Central Florida Urban League.
Gladly. Thank you, first of all, for having me on your show today, State Attorney Bain. I really appreciate that. Central Florida Urban League, we are the largest civil rights organization in the United States, and we've been serving Central Florida for about 45 years now. And our main goal is to educate and empower our community. And we do that through programs such as we had an RBT program to help people get better jobs. We had a Career Plus Cares program to help people get certification. Our main thing is education to try to help people just to empower themselves, invest in themselves for a better them. And if they have a better them, we have a better community. What I personally do, I run a OAG program grant from the Office of Attorney General. And with that grant, we do forums throughout Central Florida. The forums are based on just trying to strengthen the bridge between law enforcement, the youth, and our community. Just trying to make things better for us. So young people can understand that law enforcement are people just like us. They're not any different. We may have a small percentage of law enforcement that don't do right, but mostly law enforcement, they're pretty good. They're good people, and we try to bring that to the young people. So when they see them, they know how to engage with them. We also try to educate them on their rights when they encounter law enforcement, because to let them know that they do have rights. They have the right to ask questions, things of that sort. We just try to do anything we can for the community to make Central Florida a better place.
All right. So it's all OAG. So we'll hear a lot of that terminology. Is the Office of Attorney General, which is Attorney General Ashley Moody, and right now, and so the OAG prevention program, right? So this is a prevention services program, correct?
Yes, it's an OAG youth prevention grant that we work under.
All right. And so talk a little about kind of more just broadly. Let's just bring it, let's start wide and then we'll narrow it in. So we spent some time in Tampa a few, like now about 6 months ago now. And actually more than that, man.
Last year, November.
Last year, as I was like, man, I was like, it was more than that. It was last year. Right. Yeah, we spent some time in Tampa and talk to the people kind of broadly that this is just not something locally, but something going on throughout our state. So talk to them about the conference and how kind of we all collaborate. How you all collaborate as mostly all the urban leagues to the idea of this prevention services for our kids mostly.
Well, we have an urban league, what we call an urban league consortium, and it consists of 8 or 9 urban leagues throughout Florida, Tallahassee, Miami, Broward County, can't remember, Jacksonville, here, Orlando. And what we do, we meet once a year. Again, we'll be in Tampa this year. We have a conference to discuss the different things. And within the conference, we have the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, different agencies that come share information on. Like last year was a great conference because we learned a lot about fentanyl and the effects of fentanyl as having on the communities, where fentanyl originates from, how it can be mistaken for different types of other things that people think are legal, as far as kids thinking it's candy or Skittles or anything like that. So it's a great educational piece. Once we do the conference, like I said, we'll be doing another one in the month of October. It's just a great educational piece for the community, for all us as affiliates, because all us at Urban League, we have one goal, and that one goal is to make our communities better, educate our communities, because the belief is if people are educated and they're willing to invest in themselves. See, people have to be willing to invest in themselves. You just can't expect people to just hand it to you. So if you're willing to put in the time to invest yourself in one of the programs, and all our programs are free, they're at no cost, then within the community, they get better jobs. It's better income. So now that all works together with the crime rate. The crime rate starts to go down. People are happy. We have a happy community because people are working. Everybody has money. It's just a better thing. So we work together as one unit throughout Florida, period, to make Florida a better place and a stronger community as a whole.
Yeah, I remember my biggest thing that I had time when I spent time at the conference that we talked about. There was a big push about human trafficking. There was also other things about community policing, which is kind of what we surrounding the idea that we're talking about right now. So part of what I thought about was, that's why I wanted to get engaged with these forums, because I'm a big believer in community policing and about how do we get law enforcement and the community engaged with each other. And so that was something that was super exciting about me. And so in kind of a segue to that, I'm going to bring on one of our good partners in the forums, which is Captain Dennis Ela from the Orange County Sheriff's Office. And we have been, I don't know how many forums have we done now the past, since before November till now.
Like 6 of them, 7.
Yeah, 6, 7 of them. And this is outside of the stuff I do on de-escalation with law enforcement. So that's 6 or 7 forums with you guys, and I've done now will be in I think at the end of this month, or the beginning of next month, we're doing another de-escalation down in Osceola. So that'll be another 6 forums. That's 12 forums of similar different types of ways to approach the same conversation. But I guess Captain Ela, what do you think about when you hear the words community policing? Kind of what do you think about when you are talking to to the people that work for you and kind of talk to people in the public about that?
Yeah, so community policing is an incredibly important concept. There's a lot of different definitions for it, right? But my definition is that we know our community, we know our store owners, we know the people who live in our neighborhoods, and we develop relationships with those folks. And how do we do that? We don't just respond to calls, do what we need to do, and leave. We actually follow up with them, We go to community events. We go to things like the Pine Hill Safety Council and different events like that, and we hear what the members of the community are concerned with, right? It's really easy in our role to get super hyper focused on statistical things and maps that show you what's happening, where it's happening, and all that stuff. And it's real easy to think, well, that's the problems, that's what I need to focus on. But when we go out to these meetings and we meet with the community members and we meet with community leaders and we establish those relationships with them, we hear what their concerns are. And that allows us to address what is keeping them awake at night. And then the second part of that community policing is that we heard the concerns and we do something about it, and we follow up with that same community and we ask them, how do you like what we're doing? Are we solving your problem for you? And that is establishing that trust between the community members and ourselves that is you can't quantify that, right, on any heat map or a crime map or statistics, whatever. That's where the meaningful community policing comes in. We hear what your concerns are. We go out, we take action, we address what your concerns are, hopefully resolve those in a manner that is effective and meaningful to you, and we continue.
Yeah. So while we were at the conference, one of the, I think it was St. Pete's chief of police, and he was talking about St. Petersburg out on the West Coast, that I guess his motto is park, walk, and talk.
Yeah.
And so that's what he requires. Part of every shift, at some point in your shift, you need to park, walk, and talk to the people. And so I thought that was something easy to remember. But I think you talk to me about, because you're in command staff. How hard is that to implement though on a downstream to the guys actually in the streets?
It isn't difficult to do. I will tell you that is a great strategy, and it is somewhat terrain dictated, right? So
yeah, correct. I mean, the concept. I mean, obviously, if you can't walking Pine Hills maybe a little hard. Walking Paramore maybe a little easier, kind of thing.
Exactly. But listen, we have very robust groups of people within our organization that specifically do that on a regular basis. So in the Pine Hills community, we have the community-oriented policing squads. They are specifically tasked on a daily basis with addressing the community's concerns. And how do they get those concerns? They stop, they park, they walk. They go talk with the business owners. They talk with community leaders. They talk with residential leaders and communities, and they find out what their issues are, and they specifically address them. It's for more the traditional model, like if you have kind of a vertical city, downtown Orlando would be a local area where that work is real easy to do that old beat cop thing.
Yeah.
But the way we overcome that is, first of all, from my perspective, I demand that my folks speak with people and get down to the root of what their issue is. And if it's outside of our realm, like it's not a law enforcement problem that we have the tools or empowered to solve, that we put them in contact with the proper public or private partner that can resolve that issue, right? We can't solve every issue, but we certainly have partnerships across the county and the state that are specifically engineered to solve those issues. So it's all of those things coming in, taking the time, really listening to people, right? Like Grandma said, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's more important to listen than it is to talk. And making sure that before you leave that, there's never an excuse to say there's nothing I can do about that. That's not an excusable response from a police officer in any circumstance. You might not be empowered by law to solve that problem, but you are empowered to reach out to somebody who is and connect those people with the resource that can help them.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of my big things that if there was anything that I wanted my legacy of this administration that I'm running to be, is that the idea of criminal justice is a community issue. It's not a individual thing. It's not the sheriff's office. It's not just the state attorney's office. It's not just nonprofits and community advocates like the Central Florida Urban League. It's not just the school board. It's all of us as a community deciding how we want our community to look. How do we want our community to operate? And all of us being responsible for the safety of that community. So one of the other things is that we kind of all going to do here later on today is they're a part of this advisory board, right? So I'll let Mr. Battle talk a little bit about the advisory board. And somebody asked a question and on the social media, I want to bring that question in because I think that's going to be a good question for this afternoon when we're talking at the advisory board. So Mr. Battle, talk to us about what is this advisory board that all of us sit on?
The advisory board is a group of diverse individuals with different expertise in different areas. And we sit down and we kind of come up with solutions to different things that's going on in our community at large. And we discuss these issues and see how we as a committee can implement some solutions to help our community. Just sitting down talking on this year right here. Today we have our first meeting. We're going to be more, I would say, boots on the ground, doing things out in the community to help the community just to be better. Our main thing in Urban League, the focus, and for me, is to do whatever we can to make the community a better place. And as you said, State Attorney Bain, it takes all of us. I play my part, you play your part, Orange County Sheriffs play their part, OPD plays their part. And if we all work together as a cohesive unit, along with the community, the neighbors, I remember when I came along, we would have one person. I grew up in Philadelphia. We would have like 2-story houses, and we would have like one old lady that kind of set up on the second floor in her room and just watch. She was like the neighborhood watch, and she just knew what was going on, what happened, and we worked together. And if you messed up, you're gonna hear about it, So the advisory committee, what we try to do, we want to produce a healthy, productive members of society. Do anything we can to give them opportunities to be just great members of our society and our community. And if that's by educating them, putting them in programs, giving people second chances, we're all for it.
I agree. So, a question. And so the question is like, what's our focus on mental health? And so not so much with this group. In my de-escalation forums, we talk a lot about mental health of officers, mental health of people engaged in the police interaction. And so, how can we possibly do more in this subject? And like talking about more about, I bring it up sometimes. I bring it up in the context of, hey, this is an officer. They have a very stressful job. You don't know what the last call was before they got to you, and so that call they could have, been, had very dangerous situation where they had to deal with, and then now they're coming to your call. And so there's a they have to come down from that call and all kinds of different things like that. So how much can we engage both on the mental health of our kids that we do these forums with, and talk about the mental health of the officers as well?
Can I speak on that real quick?
Sure.
Okay, great question, Marcus. This year, as far as the advisory committee, we will be instituting a mental health awareness component to the advisory committee. We'll be discussing that later on. And one thing that we've added to these forums is we have Deputy Carlos Chavez, who comes to the forums now. We also have another gentleman named Mr. Wante Vanderpool, who's a mental health, I would say, expert to discuss the mental health status and with the young people and let them know how important mental health is, and to educate them for our community to get away from that stigma of, one thing that I think Captain and I talked about one time was not being able to share your emotions, not being able to cry, and just holding it in till it becomes rage. So we really, this year right here, as far as the Central Florida Urban League Advisory Committee is, we are going to step it up with the mental health piece within our forums and within our advisory committee.
So from the sheriff's office standpoint and what Carl's talking about, we have a behavioral response unit, right? So we partner with mental health professionals, and we deploy a deputy and a mental health professional for when we encounter people who have some kind of a mental illness or some kind of a psychological issue going on. And to speak to what Carl's saying, we're bringing one of those deputies and a clinician that works with them to these forums on a regular basis, because that is a common issue in our community, and every community now is mental health. So Carlos and his clinician can speak to the kids specifically about resources. Like, they know every resource, public and private resource, that's available to help young people, anybody, but in particularly for these forums, the young people who might be having some kind of an issue. And there are, if you pay attention after these forums when he's there, there's a lot of sideline conversations between individuals and him. So it's another great thing that this forum brings to these youth groups.
Yeah. So I think we witnessed it last time we were in. I think we were actually the first time that we brought them in was at the Urban League, when we had the kids come over after school from Evans. And so there are a lot of it's a big push on, I think, on all fronts everywhere, including my office. I got to talk to a little bit at the beginning of the show, talking about our victims and their mental health. I also got to think about, just like Captain Ela and Sheriff Mina, about the mental health of my staff, because we deal with some real things that normal people won't ever have to see in their lives on a regular basis, and so it's emotionally taxing on both our staffs, both on the deputies. They're on the streets, onto my kind of secondary trauma type of things that happen with like some of my staff. So it's about, of course, again, healthy. We want to be more healthy, safer, healthier communities. And mental health is part of what we do at the forums. And I was super excited that Sheriff Mina was able to give us some BRU, it's a behavioral response unit, some folks to come out and talk to them about what they do. And so I'm a big proponent of that. We talked about it a few, I think now 2 episodes ago. We were talking about, about trauma. We're talking about, like environmental trauma, whether it's family trauma, all those things like that had to deal with how we affect those. So we are definitely looking forward to helping out, and so we are looking forward to continuing that process, because it's something so important about what we do, and of course, again, about the health of our community. And so like, not to talk about it is not cool. So for everybody listening on the sound of my voice, I think you need to remember 6 numbers. All right. So if you dial 211, all right, 211 will give you all the mental health. They'll get you into contact with somebody. They can give you every mental health asset that we have locally. 988, if you are somebody in crisis, if you're with somebody in crisis, that's the number you need to call. You'll be directly connected to a crisis care specialist if you call that number. So 211 will give you every mental health, like pretty much asset that we have locally. Now, they're not, we don't say not every single thing, but they'll give you a lot of assets. But 988, if you're dealing with crisis, they call it's a suicide hotline, but it's also for any crisis intervention. So whether it's mental, psychological breakdown, emotional breakdown, it's a crisis care specialist that can connect you. They can be connected through that number. So 211 for information, 988 for crisis. And so those are the things that we talk about regularly when I'm out in the public, and we're trying to get people involved in understanding that mental health is just not a stigma. It's not a label. It's not anything like that. It is okay to be not okay, but it's not okay not to ask for help. And so that's kind of where we want to be in that conversation. So Let's talk a little bit about the forums, though, just a little bit, because I want to get first of all Mr. Battle's ideas, and then Captain Eli, if you can tell me a little bit about what's your favorite thing about having these forums.
You want me to go first? I'm sorry.
Well, either one. I chose an order, but you guys can choose whatever you say.
Go ahead, Carl.
My favorite thing is just bringing the kids together with law enforcement.
Yeah.
Being able to educate the kids, the youth, and then seeing when they walk into the forums and they see law enforcement, state attorney's office there, and they're very, very tense. You can just feel the tension in the room. And then gradually, as the forum goes on, they're starting to ask their questions. They're getting real answers. No sugarcoat. We don't sugarcoat anything. They're getting real answers. They're getting the truth. And then after the forum has ended, to see the young people with the side conversation, it's a pocket of young people to the right, it's some to the left. It's almost like law enforcement can't get out of there. They have so many questions. So it's just to see the progression from the tension to, okay, this is all right, to, hey, law enforcement, they all right. That's my favorite part of it.
All right.
So
okay.
That's some of my favorite stuff too, is that, when we walk in and you have a group of young folks, it's the folded arms and the stern looks on their faces, and nobody wants to make eye contact or whatever. Within, 10 minutes, Carl, 15 minutes, like you can't answer questions fast enough. But one of the things personally that I like about it the most is it gives me great hope for this generation, right? Every older generation says, this new generation, they're terrible. Well, they haven't been exposed to this new generation. When you sit in those forums and you listen to the intelligent, well thought out, articulate, and meaningful questions that these young people have, and it totally dispels that myth. Like this is a brilliant generation of young people that are coming up. And also, what Carl said, it's a candid conversation. It gives us an opportunity in a very unofficial environment to let people know what things look like from our side, and to maybe have a little bit of understanding what it looks like when you're the police officer and you're coming up on this event, and this is what someone has called in and said is going on, and now you're coming into that situation with all of these primers, worried about your own safety and things like that, what that looks like. And I don't think there hasn't been a single event where, like what Carl said, like when the event ends, it ends at say 8 o'clock at night. We're there till 8:30, 8:45 at least, because these kids want to keep talking, which is great.
Yeah.
One other thing real quick.
Right.
It's when we have a forum, and then we'll have like a law enforcement meeting like after the forum, and we'll have like a great feedback from the kids. Like one of the law enforcement, one of the deputies or officer have seen a kid in the store at the park, and they come up to him and they say, "Hey, I'm such and such. I met you at the forum on Mercy Drive, or I met you at the forum in Paramore," and they're looking to interact and engage and talk to him. That's big right there. That's big. So I love to hear that type of feedback.
Yeah, I think I've enjoyed the hanging out with the kids, and then more seeing them start to connect with the officers in a way, or the deputies, or even myself, is that I have kids, so we're not just people, random people. Like, they have families, they have kids. They have some, like Chris, like, what do you do on your off time? And like most people that are parents, they hang out with the kids and hang out, maybe with some friends. They go to the movies. They do normal people things, because it kind of some things that happens to me a lot as the chief of an agency. People think that you don't do normal things. So like yesterday I had like a meeting, like, late in the afternoon, and I was like, I had to rush home. I was like, I was making dinner. I was like, making sure the kids were doing what they had to do, and all those kind of things like that. Doesn't mean that on the next day, I get to turn on later at night. I mean, I had to take a call from one of my chief assistant or my homicide, one of my homicide prosecutors or something like that, and I had to do state attorney things. But it's getting to see those kind of things go on between the kids and the officers and the deputies. It's really one of my favorite things, because it's one of my biggest things about building empathy. And I always get very concerned any rhetoric or any conversation where anybody's being dehumanized. One of those things that really concern me at a core level, because that's that kind of last step before violence, before things really go bad. And so I'm always aware of that. And it's more we can humanize people in those things is always a good fun. So I have a favorite question that was asked, but Mr. Ballard, what's your favorite question or topic that was brought up by one of the kids in the panel?
I wouldn't say it was so much of a question. It was more of a situation that that the young lady was dealing with some law enforcement that she had dealt with, and she didn't know any answers. She didn't know who to go to. So by us having a forum and them feeling like it was a safe space, she asked the question. This forum was on Orange Center, and she was able to get answers to her question, and she was told what to do, how to deal with it. And she actually went and dealt with it the way the officers told her to deal with it. And she had a very positive, I got the feedback, she had a very positive outcome. So that's one of the most favorite things that I remember. Just her being able to come to a forum, feel safe, ask the question, get an answer, go do what she was told, and then had a positive outcome.
Okay. What you got, Cap?
So not so much a favorite question, but one of the things I enjoy the most in these forums is kind of what you already talked about, talking about what do you do when you're not at work, and being able to tell the kids, hey, I'm a dad too. I've got a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old son. I got a wife who works. When I get out of here today, Carl, when I get off of your meeting, making sure the kids' homework's done, they're fed, and we're off to the football field. We got Pop Warner practice tonight. I coach the 12-year-old team. My son's on the 9-year-old team, and we'll be there till 8:30 at night. So kind of that's my favorite thing, is relaying to the kids, I'm just a man. I'm just a guy. I got a family. I got all the things, all the same concerns and responsibilities that everybody else in society has. So it's that. I think the popular thing is to say humanizing the badge, but that's kind of a catchphrase. It's just, hey man, we're just people too. We got families. We got all the same concerns. I got the same concerns from my kids that any other parent does, right? About them being safe and not being negatively influenced. We all turn them over to a school all day, every day, and are they being treated right there? And all those things.
Yeah. So I guess my favorite topic, like the talk to this age group of kids, that is a question that usually comes up at some point in all our forums. Is a sexting crew of people. So I always. I was talking to a group of teachers, I think on Monday. They were asking me the same thing about what is the sex thing. So I'm like, well, it's an infraction. But with my discussion, when I talk to these groups of these kids, I'm like, listen, if you send this picture or this video, all the homies saw, all his friends, and their girlfriends, and probably a parent at some point probably ran across whatever you sent. So don't do it. And so it's a lifelong lasting thing. Unfortunately, right now we live in a world, the internet is forever. As you can tell, because it's political season, they'll bring up anything they can. So this is like, I'm sorry, this is not State Attorney. This is State Attorney Bain talking as a citizen. Anything, any candidate they can find on the internet. They'll find a video of you, a picture of you. It'll be something. But it'd be something you text somebody, you message somebody, it's like a picture or a video, and now you're trying to get a job, you're trying to get into school, and then now there's this thing that's there, that's searchable and findable that you can be subject to being not having an opportunity because of something you sent. So that's like my favorite thing to kind of talk to the kids about, especially the age group of kids that we're talking about, middle school, high school age kids, and the work that they and the interesting choices that they have to make at that age. And so there's always good fun. So not good. Well, it's good for me to joke with them about it, but in a serious tone, and warn them about the consequences of that, because obviously they're at an age where everything is possible for them and they're invincible. And he loves me or she loves me or all those kind of things like that. Like they may love you, but they don't love you that much. So we gotta make sure that you are guarding yourself against becoming a victim of that. And so I won't go too dark with them, because I try not to talk about the human trafficking and the exploitation and all that stuff that they make yourself a subject of. But that's kind of one of the topics that we did talk about at one point. I thought, what was your most impactful panel? I guess we'll kind of do the same thing. Or we'll actually, Cap, let's go first. What was your most, out of all the panels that we've sat on, which one do you think was the most impactful one for you?
Well, believe it or not, it was the first one. And we did it with Miss Fatmi Hall's group. It was the first time that I ever did one of these. It was most impactful to me. That was really kind of right in the midst of, or right on the heels of kind of the anti-law enforcement sentiment, right? The big broadcast was anti-law enforcement. And it was the most impactful to me because I can remember a specific question from a young lady in that forum, and it really, it right through the heart. She said, "We are being encouraged that if we are the victims of crimes and the crime is being perpetrated by another person of color, not to report it. What do you think about that?" And it's just like that. I mean, even talking about it just rips my heart out, because it's bothersome to me that we're trying to teach young people that they are expected to be victims of crimes because the person looks like them. And the flip side of that is that they're being told we'd rather have that person who's victimizing you amongst us than the police. And I can't think of a more negative message to send our youth. And she wasn't advocating that, but she was saying this is what we're experiencing.
Yeah.
You remember that, Carl?
I definitely remember that. I definitely remember that forum right there. You were in your car. That was the very first one.
Yes.
You were in your car on that forum. You couldn't make it, but you logged on to Zoom for that forum. For me, it was the one that we did on Mercy Drive at the Northwest Center. And it was the little 12-year-old boy, probably 12, 13 years old. And he said, what if you know where the guns are? How do you tell where the guns are without getting in trouble or worry about your friend shooting you? That right there, I will always remember that young man, 12 years old, saying, what if you know where the guns are? And then the way the panel handled the question, Deputy Chris Dillon at that time was there, and the way he handled that question from that young man, and just to see the young man's face after he got his answer to that question. But it was just so, 12 years old. 12 years old. What if you know where if you know where the guns are? And how can I tell without worrying about getting shot? That was one of the most that was an impactful moment for me.
Yeah, I remember that because one of my for everybody that's listening, I used to be an Orange County judge, and part of your job or rotation as an Orange County judge or any judge, you have to cover initial appearances. That means that after somebody's arrested, they have to see a judge within 24 hours after they're arrested. And the same thing happens. Remember, we talked about juvenile last week. But juvenile is taken into custody. They have to go to a detention hearing, and that happens 24 hours after, within 24 hours after they're arrested. And maybe my second time doing this, I had an 11-year-old in front of me for armed burglary of a conveyance, which means they were armed or became armed when they broke into a car. And I'm thinking in my mind, I was like, and I'm reading the report for it, and it's like it was 2:30 in the morning, I think, when he got arrested. And I'm thinking in my mind, where is his child's parents that they don't know where their child is at 2:30 in the morning? Like, this is an 11-year-old kid. Like, this is, and he was so little. I think one of my oldest daughter may be bigger than him, and she's only like 8. And so he was, it's an 11-year-old kid out at 2:30 in the morning. I'm like, who's supervising this child? And that's when I talk about community stuff. I want to talk about my favorite panel, but in a second. But when I talk about community as a criminal justice thing, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, as a community, what are we doing about a kid that's out at 2:30 in the morning? I'm talking about a kid, not just like a teenager. I'm talking about a kid that's out at that time in the morning. What are we doing to help make sure that child is sheltered, looked after, mentored, supervised, provided for, fed? What are we doing as a community to make that happen? So people may think that I'm like a crazy person sometimes, because I'm like, what am I doing with food boxes from Second Harvest Food Bank? Or I'm with Grow, like we were at our back to school drive, providing basketballs and recreational equipment to underserved park people, because they don't have parks to play at. So we did a form in Edenville. That's one of the things it was kind of one of the most heartbreaking things that I experienced when the first time I went there, was that it was a park, and I'm like, what are the kids playing with? They need balls, they need basketball, they need equipment, they need things that allows them to be kids. And then, but if you don't, then you're gonna put them in adult situations at a very early age, and it's gonna be problematic. So that's what we're looking to do. And so that's why when I talk about community criminal justice, that's what we're talking about. Not just that's a perfect example, Carl, of what needs to be occurring in our community as a whole. So now I'm a girl dad. So the most impactful panel for me was when we were at the ranch, and the girls, and I think Ms. Fatimah Hall asked them, what are they most afraid of? That's one of the questions that we asked. And every single girl was afraid of being abused. That was our number one concern. We were at the ranch, and the ranch is a place. It's a respite care location where the kids go stay during the week, where their families are dealing with family issues or they got something going on. It's an agreement that they have. They can go stay at the ranch, and it's no charge to them. And it's a great organization. And the owner and runner of that ranch is also part of our advisory board. But that was something that kind of stuck with me and still sticks with me today. And talking about, and these are middle school to high school age girls, and the number one concern was about being either physically abused or sexually abused. And I'm like thinking in my mind, what are we doing again as a community to guard against that, to change that narrative for these young women, where they don't feel afraid that they're going to be abused by either somebody inside their home, out in the community, or hopefully we're helping them build proper self-esteem and relationships, so they're not going to be abused in any intimate relationship that they have with somebody later on, because that's also was my immediate fear, was that, oh man, like I hope that these young women don't become the victims of domestic violence later on because of what's going on with them right now. And then because they see themselves as being a subject of victimization as a normal, as something that's normal for them. And so that's always a heartbreaking thing for me, but something that, you know, kind of gets my wheels turning on how can we help those young women make sure that we have the tools that they need to, you know, to protect themselves. And to protect themselves from certain situations. And so that is, and also maybe things like, I know what perpetrator can I go after for harming these little girls. So it's a really big issue, you know, for our young women. And so that's me. I have an 8 and a 6-year-old, and so 2 girls. So that is, you know, my main concern is always their safety, and to make sure that they are going to be living a productively and safe life. So that's a lot of work I do in the community. It's about building safe communities for people so that they can live lives like my kids.
That's why one of the things that I love about my job is I have the opportunity to go through, and we touch on those pieces when I teach my human trafficking workshops. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times some of the young ladies that are forced into that or coerced into that situation are by boyfriends, you know, are by family members, you know what I'm saying? So it's very important. You say we don't want to get too dark, but it's very important that we educate our community on that type of activity of human trafficking, educate these young girls, not only the young girls, teach the young men too, because they can become victims of human trafficking also. So that's a very important piece of the work that we do at Central Florida Urban League, is out there teaching human trafficking to our community and to the adults and also to the young people.
Yeah, so that is you know, my first episode of the show, I did this, like, I probably got to bring back a part 2 of the human trafficking show that we did, because there was so much I was trying to unpack in the hour that we had, but it was I got to even scratch the surface of many of the things that go into that, whether that's human trafficking related to you know, online job applications, to you know, again, changing the narrative, especially in the Black and brown communities. Because I remember in high school, it was a normal thing for, like, you know, a drug dealer to come pick up a 14, 15-year-old girl from school after school. Like, that was like a thing. And, like, you know, and she would be proud of it. Like, oh, my boyfriend is, you know, 20, 24 or 25 years old. And at the time, I was like, wait, so you got this old dude, like, he got nothing else to do but, like, hang out with, like, little high school girls. But we didn't say anything about it. I mean, right, because it was something that was commonplace. But now that we're older and we know that this is like, no, this is not, but that's something that's definitely not okay. Like, you and this little girl is not okay. That's a baby. And, like, you should not be nowhere near this girl talking about how you're paying her mama rent, and you are, you know, buying her stuff and buying her gifts and so on and so forth. And then that, you know, next thing you know, you heard that girl, like, you know, she pregnant, or, you know, she off whatever, she addicted to drugs, all kind of stuff. Like some of them girls that I went to school with as in high school now, that and now thinking about it, like with the mindset I have now, is, you know, is crazy that was going on. And so, you know, and I, you know, again, I can tell everybody, like, look, if you traffic one of my kids and we catch you, I want to do everything I can to give you life. You know, so that is, you know, that's really the bottom line of the situation. But we got to make sure that we are protecting our kids, and that's something that's, you know, paramount, you know, to what we do here at the office. And I know Cap, you know, I talk to Sheriff about it all the time, Sheriff Mina about it, paramount about the work that we're doing together to make sure that happens.
It kind of all comes back to that word you used earlier. It's empathy, and all of these problems and crimes and victimization comes back to that word. It's a common denominator amongst these what I call a predatory mindset, predatory personalities, is they don't have empathy for anybody else.
Yeah, that's okay. We're here to fight against the evil people. That's what we do, and we're here to shine the light and give people the right path. So that's also the next thing we get to do. So I want to thank you both. I want to see you at 4 o'clock for our meeting. So I'll see you all in a little bit. But I want to thank you all for coming on to the show and to all the work that you guys do on a daily basis. I'm always here to amplify it and do as much as I can to make sure that we're reaching as many people as possible. So thank you all for coming on.
Thank you.
All right. So there's an amazing group of men that came on, community leaders that are doing some amazing work in what we do. So, I like to close out every week with some motivation. We got a little bit down the rabbit hole of darkness, but we want to talk a little bit about some motivation to get you for the next day, to the next time we see you next week. And I want to talk about one of the things that makes it easy for me to get through every single day. So I focus a lot on fundamentals. So discipline and fundamentals is what separates good from great. All right. And so you have to build a strong foundation of success. So success is not something that just happens. It doesn't happen for anybody. If you hear somebody telling you that somebody got somewhere, it's less because it's pure nepotism. That's not true. Like, so they had to sacrifice, they had to work, they had to, do a lot of things where people weren't like looking to get to where they are. And a lot of that has to do with building strong fundamentals. And so right now, the greatest basketball shooter in the world, as you saw in the Olympics, is Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry is the best basketball jump shot sharp shooter in the world. And he put that on display in the Olympics. And if you really watch what he does, it is a clinic in being fundamental in how to shoot a basketball. It is releasing the ball as high as points. It's about having his shoulder square to the basketball goal, to him being not off balance in any way. And he does it in such a fluid, efficient motion that you almost can't even see it happening. And that's kind of like how you have to work from being just okay at something to being great at something. All right. So I was like, I used to be like an okay football player. And then for me to take the next step to becoming towards greatness, I had to become like disciplined in how I was fundamental. I was talented, natural talent. God made me big, fast, and strong. And so I had the natural talent, but it was the fundamentals that took me from being just a okay recruit in high school to a D1 All-American recruit, and to be able to be a starter in a D1 school playing in front of hundreds of thousands or not millions of people on TV. And so it's about building those fundamentals as a strong foundation. I had an offensive line coach tell me when I played offensive line at the University of Miami, say, hey, when I first got there, you're going to have to do this drill 1 million times before you're good at it. And he was probably about right. It was probably a little less than 1 million was an extreme number, but I did it thousands of times and not hundreds of thousands of times before I became proficient at it to the point where I was just not just good at it, I was great at it. And so that's what the skill is that you have to continue to work on, and bringing that motivation, bringing that effort into what you do every single day. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you're a state attorney for the Ninth Judicial Circuit, whether you are a cashier at a store. The idea is to be great at that skill and to get you to the next step of success, of building and continue to build. Because if you become better, like Mr. Battle just told you, our community becomes better. If you build up and strong and build a strong foundation based on that work that you've been doing, our community is better. We are better every time somebody in our community decides to step out on faith and become better every single day. And so that is what I want to leave you with today. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again and hearing from you all again next week on Community Conversations, and hope you all have a blessed day.
You've been listening to Community Conversations with State Attorney Bain. Join us again next Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. for another episode. Looking for real talk on the criminal justice system and how we can work together to make our communities safer? Tune into Community Conversations with State Attorney Bain every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. Join State Attorney Andrew Bain as he interviews community leaders and activists, diving into the topics that matter most in Orange and Osceola counties. Get insights, stay informed, and be part of the conversation.